My name is Lorraine Washington, and I'm 68 years old. I raised my son Marcus by myself after his father passed when Marcus was only 12. I worked 2 jobs for 16 years, one as a school cafeteria manager during the day, another cleaning offices at night, to make sure my baby had everything he needed. I wanted him to have the life I never had. I wanted him to go to college, to wear nice clothes, to never worry about where his next meal would come from. And I succeeded. Marcus graduated from Howard University with honors. He became a financial advisor, making more money in a month than I used to make in a year. He married a beautiful woman named Destiny, and they bought a big house in a neighborhood where houses cost more than most people make in their lifetime. I was so proud. Every Sunday at church, I'd smile when people asked about Marcus. "He's doing so well," I'd say. "The Lord has blessed him." But what I'm about to tell you will show you that sometimes the children you sacrifice everything for can become strangers. Sometimes the people you love most can hurt you in ways you never imagined. It started 3 weeks ago on a Tuesday afternoon. Marcus called me, which wasn't unusual. He called every week, though our conversations had become shorter over the years. "Hey, Ma," he said, his voice warm and cheerful. "How are you feeling?" "I'm good, baby," I said. I was sitting in my small apartment, the one I'd lived in for 30 years. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. "Just finished making some sweet potato pie. You want to come by?" "Actually, Ma, that's why I'm calling. Destiny and I have been talking, and we think you need a break. You've been working so hard your whole life, taking care of everybody. It's time someone took care of you." My heart warmed. Maybe I'd been wrong to think Marcus had been distant lately. "That's sweet of you to say, baby." "No, Ma, I'm serious. We want to send you on a cruise. A real nice one. 2 weeks in the Caribbean. All expenses paid. You can relax, get some sun, eat good food, maybe make some new friends." I was quiet for a moment. A cruise? I'd never been on a cruise in my life. I'd barely been out of the city except for that one trip to my cousin's funeral in Atlanta 5 years ago. "Marcus, that's too much money." "Ma, don't worry about the money. You deserve this. You gave me everything. Let me give you something back. Please, it would make me and Destiny really happy." How could I say no to that? My son wanted to do something nice for me. Maybe this was his way of showing he appreciated all those years of sacrifice. "Okay," I said, my voice soft. "Okay, baby. Thank you." "Great. The cruise leaves in 10 days. I'll come by this weekend with all the details and your ticket. We'll go shopping, get you some new clothes for the trip. It's going to be amazing, Ma. You're going to love it." That Saturday, Marcus came by with Destiny. They brought bags from expensive stores, new dresses, swimsuits, sandals, sunglasses. Destiny helped me try everything on, smiling and saying how beautiful I'd look on the ship. Marcus handed me a burgundy envelope with my cruise ticket and itinerary inside. "The ship leaves from Miami," he explained. "I've already booked your flight. You fly out Friday morning. A car will pick you up and take you to the airport." "You thought of everything," I said, touched by the attention to detail. "That's what sons do, Ma." He kissed my forehead. "You just relax and enjoy yourself. Don't worry about anything here. Everything is taken care of." The week passed quickly. I told everyone at church about the cruise. Sister Patricia was jealous in that playful way church ladies get. 2 weeks in the Caribbean? Girl, you better bring me back something nice. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, an elderly Chinese woman who'd lived next door for 20 years, helped me pack. You have good son, she said in her broken English. He love his mama. I thought so too. The night before I was supposed to leave, I couldn't sleep. I was too excited, too nervous. I'd never been away from home for 2 weeks. I'd never been on a plane by myself, but I was also looking forward to it. Maybe I'd meet some nice people. Maybe I'd finally see what the ocean really looked like beyond the pictures. Around 9 o'clock Thursday night, I realized I'd left my good reading glasses at Marcus's house when we'd had dinner there 2 nights before. I'd need them for the trip. My eyes weren't what they used to be, and I'd brought 3 books to read on the ship. I tried calling Marcus, but he didn't answer. I called again, no answer. I thought about just leaving without them, but those glasses cost me $200, and I couldn't afford to replace them. So I decided to drive over to Marcus's house. It was only 20 minutes away, and I had a key he'd given me years ago for emergencies. I'd just let myself in quietly, grab my glasses from the kitchen counter where I'd left them, and go home. When I pulled up to Marcus's house, all the lights were on. His car and Destiny's car were both in the driveway. I figured they were home, probably relaxing in the living room. I parked on the street and walked up the long driveway, admiring the house like I always did. My son had made it. He'd really made it. I used my key to open the front door quietly, not wanting to startle them. The house was quiet except for voices coming from Marcus's office down the hall. The door was slightly open, and light spilled out into the hallway. I was about to call out, but something made me stop. I heard Marcus's voice, low and serious. Once she's gone, we can finally start the renovations. This house needs a complete overhaul, and with her out of the way, we won't have to deal with her showing up randomly or calling about every little thing. My hand froze on my purse. Destiny's voice came next, that sweet voice that had called me Mama Lorraine for the past 8 years. Are you sure the ticket is one way only? What if she notices before she gets on the ship? She won't notice. I checked the ticket myself before I gave it to her. It says round trip on the passenger information. But if you look at the actual travel dates, there's only a departure date, no return. By the time she realizes it, she'll already be at sea. My heart stopped beating. I swear it stopped. But what if she calls you from the ship? Destiny asked. Marcus laughed, a cold laugh I'd never heard from him before. Her phone won't work in international waters. By the time we're done with everything, she won't have a home to come back to anyway. What do you mean? Her lease is up in 2 weeks. I already contacted her landlord and told him she was moving into a senior facility and wouldn't be renewing. I paid him $1,000 to keep quiet about it. The floor felt like it was falling away beneath me. Marcus, that's... Destiny's voice sounded uncertain. It's necessary, Marcus said firmly. Ma is getting old. She can't take care of herself properly anymore. Have you seen that apartment? It's falling apart. She needs to be in a proper facility where people can look after her. I've already found a place, Sunny Meadows Senior Living. It's nice, clean, safe. She'll have her own room, meals provided, activities. It's better for everyone. Did you ask her if she wanted to go to a senior home? She would have said no. You know how stubborn she is. She would have fought me on it, cried, made me feel guilty. This way is cleaner. She goes on the cruise, has a good time, and when she gets back, her apartment is gone. I'll pick her up from the port, explain the situation, and take her straight to Sunny Meadows. She'll be upset at first, but she'll adjust. Old people always do. Before we continue, please drop a comment if you've ever experienced something like this. We'd love to hear your story, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. I stood in that hallway, my hand still frozen on my purse, and something inside me broke. Not my heart. Hearts break when you're young and you think love is supposed to be forever. No, what broke was something deeper. It was trust. It was the belief that the child I'd raised, the boy I'd sacrificed everything for, would never hurt me this way. But that broken feeling lasted only a moment, because right after it came something else. Something hot and clear and sharp. Anger. Pure righteous anger. I thought about all those nights I'd come home at 2 a.m. from my cleaning job, my knees aching, my back screaming, only to wake up at 5 to make Marcus breakfast before school. I thought about the times I'd eaten peanut butter sandwiches for dinner so he could have a hot meal. I thought about the winter I'd worn a coat with a broken zipper because his winter coat had gotten too small, and I couldn't afford both. I thought about how I'd taught him to pray, to respect his elders, to treat people with kindness, how I'd sat with him at the kitchen table for hours, helping him with his homework, how I'd worked overtime to pay for his college application fees, how I'd cried tears of joy at his graduation. And this was how he repaid me, by tricking me onto a ship, getting rid of my home, and warehousing me in a facility like I was a piece of old furniture he didn't want anymore. I stood there in that hallway, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to fall apart. I wasn't going to let him see me hurt. No, I was going to do exactly what he wanted me to do. I was going to get on that cruise. I was going to smile and wave goodbye. I was going to let him think his little plan had worked perfectly. But I was also going to make sure that when I came back, Marcus Washington would regret the day he ever thought he could discard his mother like yesterday's trash. "All right, darling," I whispered to myself in that dark hallway. "We'll do it your way, but you're going to regret this 3 times over." I turned around quietly and walked back out of that house, the same way I'd come in, silent as a ghost. I got in my car, drove home, and sat in my apartment with the lights off, thinking, planning. I'd raised a smart man, but he'd forgotten something important. He'd forgotten that I was the one who'd made him smart. He'd forgotten where he came from. He'd forgotten who his mother was. And I was about to remind him. I pulled out the cruise ticket from my purse and examined it carefully under the lamp. Marcus was right. The passenger information said round trip. But when I looked at the fine print on the back, there was only one date listed under travel itinerary. One departure date, no return. My hands didn't shake. My eyes didn't water. I folded that ticket back up and put it in my purse. Then I picked up my phone and made a call. It rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered. "Lorraine, girl, it's almost midnight. What's wrong?" It was Brenda Mitchell, my best friend from church. Brenda had been a paralegal for 35 years before she retired. She was tough, smart, and she didn't take nonsense from anybody. "Brenda," I said, my voice calm and steady, "I need your help with something, and I need you to keep it quiet." "What's going on?" "I need the name of a good lawyer. The best one you know. Someone who handles elder law and family matters. Someone who doesn't play games." There was a pause. "Lorraine, what happened?" "I can't explain everything right now, but I need someone who can work fast, and I need someone I can trust. Can you help me?" "Of course I can. I know just the person. Her name is Angela Wright. She's sharp as a tack, and she doesn't lose. But Lorraine, are you in trouble? Is Marcus—" "I'll tell you everything when I get back, but right now I need you to set up a meeting with Angela for tomorrow morning, early, before my flight." "Tomorrow morning? Lorraine, your cruise?" "I'm still going on the cruise, but I have some business to handle first." I could hear the concern in Brenda's voice, but she knew me well enough not to push. "Okay, I'll call Angela first thing in the morning and tell her it's urgent. She owes me a favor anyway." "Thank you, Brenda." "Lorraine, whatever this is, whatever's happening, you know I've got your back, right?" For the first time that night, my voice softened. "I know. That's why I called you." After I hung up, I sat in the darkness of my apartment for a long time. I looked around at my small living room, at the couch I'd bought secondhand 20 years ago, at the photos on the wall of Marcus growing up, at the Bible on my coffee table that my own mother had given me before she passed. This apartment wasn't much. It was small and old, and the heater didn't always work right in the winter. But it was mine. I'd paid rent here for 30 years. I'd raised my son here. I'd cried here, laughed here, prayed here. This was my home, and my son had given it away like it meant nothing. I thought about what Marcus had said, that I was getting old, that I couldn't take care of myself, that I needed to be in a facility. I stood up and walked to the bathroom mirror. I looked at my reflection in the dim light. Yes, I was 68. Yes, I had gray hair and wrinkles. Yes, my knees hurt sometimes when I climbed stairs. But I wasn't helpless. I wasn't senile. I wasn't a burden that needed to be managed and hidden away. I was Lorraine Washington. I had survived poverty, widowhood, racism, and more hardship than Marcus had ever known. I had built a life with my bare hands. I had raised a son who became successful, even if that son had forgotten where he came from. And I was about to show him that old doesn't mean weak, old doesn't mean stupid, and old definitely doesn't mean defeated. I went to bed that night with a clear mind and a clear plan. Tomorrow morning, I'd meet with Angela Wright and set some things in motion. Then I'd get on that plane, board that cruise ship, and let Marcus think everything was going exactly as he planned. But in 2 weeks, when I came back, and I would be coming back, Marcus was going to learn the most important lesson I'd never been able to teach him. You don't betray family. You don't discard the people who sacrificed everything for you. And you definitely don't cross Lorraine Washington. Because I'd promised myself in that hallway he was going to regret this 3 times over. I barely slept that night. By 5 in the morning, I was already dressed and sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee, watching the sun come up through my window. At 7 o'clock sharp, my phone rang. It was Brenda. "Angela can see you at 8:30, she said. "Her office is downtown on Martin Luther King Boulevard, right above the African American Heritage Museum. Suite 304. I told her it was urgent. "Thank you, Brenda. Lorraine, I've known you for 20 years. I've never heard your voice sound like this. Whatever happened, whatever you need, I'm here. I know you are, and I promise I'll explain everything when I get back from this cruise." "You're still going, even with whatever trouble you're in?" "Especially because of the trouble I'm in," I said. "Trust me on this." At 8:15, I was sitting in the waiting room of Angela Wright's law office. The walls were decorated with degrees from Yale Law School and photos of Angela with various judges and community leaders. At exactly 8:30, a tall black woman in her early 50s walked out. She was wearing a navy blue suit, her hair in elegant locks that fell past her shoulders. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent. "Mrs. Washington," she extended her hand. "I am Angela Wright. Please come in." Her office was neat and professional. On her desk were photos of 2 teenage boys, her sons, I guessed. She gestured for me to sit down and close the door behind us. "Brenda tells me you need help urgently and that you're leaving town today," Angela said, sitting across from me. "What's going on?" I took a deep breath and told her everything. I told her about Marcus's call, about the cruise, about what I'd overheard in his office. I told her about the one-way ticket, about my apartment lease being terminated, about the senior facility. I watched Angela's face as I spoke. Her expression didn't change much, but I could see her jaw tighten. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she opened a legal pad and picked up a pen. "Mrs. Washington, what you're describing is elder abuse, financial exploitation, and potentially false imprisonment, depending on how this plays out. Your son is attempting to make major life decisions for you without your consent and without legal authority to do so. Can he do that? Put me in a home without asking me?" "Not legally, no. You're of sound mind. You're not incapacitated. You have every right to make your own decisions about where you live. The fact that he's trying to trick you into this situation makes it worse." She leaned forward. "What do you want to do?" "I want to protect myself," I said. "I want to make sure that when I come back from this cruise, I have a home to come back to. And I want my son to understand that what he's trying to do is wrong." Angela nodded and started writing. "First thing, your apartment. You said your lease is up in 2 weeks?" "Yes, Marcus told my landlord I was moving out." "What's your landlord's name?" "Mr. Kowalski, Peter Kowalski, Moise. He owns the building." "Okay. I'm going to contact Mr. Kowalski today and inform him that you are not moving out, that you wish to renew your lease, and that any communication he received from your son was unauthorized. I'll also inform him that if he attempts to evict you or rent your apartment to someone else, he'll be facing a lawsuit." I felt a small weight lift off my chest. He can do that? Just tell him I'm staying? "You're the tenant, Mrs. Washington, not your son. Your son has no legal authority to terminate your lease. Mr. Kowalski may have thought he was helping, but he was wrong to take direction from anyone but you." Angela continued writing. "Second, I'm going to draft a cease and desist letter to your son, informing him that any attempt to control your living situation, your finances, or your personal decisions without your explicit written consent constitutes elder abuse and will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. When will he get that letter? I'll have it couriered to his home this afternoon. He'll receive it while you're on the plane. I smiled for the first time since this whole nightmare started. The thought of Marcus opening that letter, realizing his plan had fallen apart, made something warm spread through my chest. Third, Angela said, we need to protect your assets. Do you have any savings, property, investments? I have about $43,000 in savings. It's in a bank account at First National. Is your son on that account? I felt my stomach drop. Yes. I added him 5 years ago in case something happened to me, and he needed to access my money for medical bills or funeral expenses. Angela's expression didn't change, but I could tell this was bad news. Mrs. Washington, I need you to go to your bank right now, before your flight. Remove your son from that account, open a new account in your name only, and transfer all your funds there. Do this before you leave town. Can he take my money? Would he do that? Based on what you've told me, yes. If he's willing to trick you onto a one-way cruise and give away your apartment, he's willing to take your money. Joint account holders have full access to all funds. You need to protect yourself. My hands started to shake, not from fear, but from anger. My life savings, the money I'd worked 2 jobs for decades to save. The money I'd planned to use if I ever got sick and needed care. Marcus could just take it? I'll go to the bank as soon as we're done here, I said. Good. Now, about this cruise. You're still planning to go? Yes. Why? You could stay here, confront your son now, and because I want him to think his plan worked, I said. I want him to believe I'm out there on that ship, clueless and helpless, while he does whatever he's planning to do. And then when I come back, I want him to see that he failed, that he underestimated me, that he can't just throw away his mother-like garbage. Angela studied me for a long moment. Then she smiled, a small, knowing smile. I think I'm going to enjoy working with you, Mrs. Washington. Call me Lorraine. Lorraine, one more thing. While you're on the cruise, I want you to document everything. Take photos, keep records. If your son tries to contact you, if he says anything incriminating, save it. We may need evidence later. Evidence for what? That depends on what your son does while you're gone. But I want to be prepared. We talked for another 30 minutes about details, her fees, which were reasonable thanks to Brenda's recommendation, and what would happen when I returned. When I left her office at 9:45, I felt different, stronger, like I had an army behind me instead of facing this alone. I drove straight to First National Bank, the same bank I'd used for 40 years. I walked up to a teller I didn't recognize, a young black woman with beautiful braids. Good morning, she said with a smile. How can I help you? I need to speak to a manager about my account. It's urgent. 10 minutes later, I was sitting in an office with Mr. Patel, the branch manager. I explained what I needed to do, remove my son from my account, and transfer all my money to a new account that only I could access. Mr. Patel looked uncomfortable. Mrs. Washington, are you sure about this? Family account changes can be complicated, and if your son— My son has no right to my money, I said firmly. I'm of sound mind. I'm making this decision freely, and I want it done now, today, before noon. Something in my voice must have convinced him. Of course, let me get the paperwork started. It took an hour of signing documents, transferring funds, closing one account, and opening another. When it was done, I had a new account number, a new debit card being mailed to my address, and all $43,000 safely locked away where Marcus couldn't touch it. I looked at my watch. It was 11:30. My flight was at 2:15. I drove home and finished packing. As I was zipping up my suitcase, my phone rang. It was Marcus. "Hey, Ma, just calling to make sure you're all ready for your big trip. The car will be there to pick you up at 12:30. I kept my voice light and cheerful. "I'm all packed, baby. I can't believe I'm really going on a cruise. You deserve it, Ma. You're going to have the time of your life. Listen, while you're gone, if you need anything, just call me, okay?" "My phone will work on the ship?" There was the smallest pause. "Well, it might be spotty in international waters, but you can always email from the ship's computers if you need to reach me." Liar. He knew my phone wouldn't work. He was counting on it. "Okay, baby, thank you again for this. It's the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me." "You're welcome, Ma. I love you." "I love you too." I hung up and stared at my phone. He'd said "I love you" like it was easy, like he meant it. How could he say those words while planning to betray me? At 12:30 exactly, a black town car pulled up outside my building. The driver helped me with my suitcase. As we pulled away from my apartment building, I looked back at the small window that had been my home for 30 years. I'd be back, I promised myself. Angela would make sure of it. The ride to the airport was smooth. The driver was polite but quiet, which I appreciated. I didn't feel like making small talk. I checked in at the airport, went through security, and sat at my gate, watching people rush by with their luggage and their lives. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Have an amazing time, Ma. Don't worry about anything here. Everything is handled." I stared at that heart emoji and felt nothing but cold determination. The flight to Miami was uneventful. 3 hours in a cramped seat, but I'd experienced worse. When we landed, there was a man holding a sign with my name on it. The cruise line had sent someone to pick me up and take me to the port. The port was overwhelming. Huge ships lined up like floating hotels, thousands of people everywhere with their suitcases and excitement. I felt small and old and out of place, but I kept my head up and followed the signs to check in for the Caribbean Princess. That's when I saw it, my ship. It was massive, white and gleaming in the Miami sun, 15 stories tall, with balconies stacked on top of each other like a fancy apartment building. I'd never seen anything so big in my life. The check-in process took forever, lines and paperwork, and showing my passport. But finally, I was walking up the gangway with my luggage, boarding the ship with hundreds of other passengers. My room was on the 8th floor. It was small but nice. A single bed, a tiny bathroom, a little desk, and a porthole window that looked out at the ocean. I sat on the bed and looked around. This was it. This was the cruise Marcus had booked for me. My one-way trip to nowhere. Except it wasn't going to be one way, because I'd already booked my return flight from Miami 2 weeks from now. I'd used my credit card that morning at the airport, charging it to the same card I'd been using for 40 years. Marcus didn't know about that card. It was mine alone. I unpacked my clothes and hung them in the tiny closet. Then I took out my phone. I had service here at the port, but once we left, Angela had warned me I'd lose it. I sent a text to Brenda. "I'm on the ship. Everything is going according to plan. Thank you for everything." She texted back immediately. Angela sent the letter to Marcus. He should get it within the hour. Stay strong, sister. I smiled. Marcus was probably at home right now, maybe starting to pack up my apartment, feeling proud of himself for handling everything so smoothly. And in an hour, a courier would knock on his door with a legal letter that would ruin his entire day. The ship's horn blew, a deep, loud sound that vibrated through the walls. We were leaving. I went up to the deck with the other passengers to watch Miami disappear into the distance. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. The ocean stretched out forever. For a moment, I forgot about Marcus and destiny and the betrayal. For a moment, I just stood there, watching the water and feeling the salt air on my face. A voice beside me said, "First cruise?" I turned to see another black woman about my age, maybe a little younger. She had short, natural hair, silver at the temples, and she was wearing a colorful dashiki with jeans. She had kind eyes. "Yes," I admitted. "First cruise, first time on a ship, first time traveling alone." "Well, welcome to the club. I'm Gladys Patterson. I'm from Chicago." "Lorraine Washington, from Baltimore." "Baltimore, I have family in Baltimore." "What brings you on the cruise?" "Lorraine, vacation." I hesitated. Something about Gladys felt trustworthy. Maybe it was her smile. Maybe it was the fact that she was alone too. Another black woman of a certain age who'd probably seen her share of hard times. "My son sent me," I said carefully, "as a gift." "That's nice. A good son. Not many of those left these days." I didn't respond to that. Instead, I changed the subject. "What about you? Why are you here?" Gladys laughed. "Because I finally divorced my no-good husband after 32 years, and I'm celebrating my freedom. This is my I'm single and loving it cruise." I couldn't help but laugh too. 32 years? What took you so long? "Fear, honey. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of what people would say. But you know what's worse than all those fears? Staying with someone who doesn't appreciate you. Staying with someone who thinks you're too old, too tired, too much trouble." She looked at me with those kind eyes. "You ever feel like that? Like someone in your life thinks you're not worth the effort anymore?" My throat tightened. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, I have." Gladys nodded like she understood everything I wasn't saying. "Well, that's why we're here, isn't it? To remind ourselves that we're worth more than people give us credit for. We're not done yet, Lorraine, not by a long shot." We stood there together as the last bit of Miami disappeared, and there was nothing but water in every direction. That night, I went to dinner in the main dining room. I'd been assigned to a table with 7 other passengers, an older white couple from Minnesota, a young Hispanic couple on their honeymoon, and 3 black women traveling together from Detroit. They were sisters, they told me, taking a trip to celebrate their mother's memory. She always wanted to go on a cruise, the oldest sister, Vanessa, explained. But she never got to, so we're going for her, in her honor. "That's beautiful," I said, and I meant it. Dinner was nice. The food was fancier than anything I was used to. Shrimp cocktails and filet mignon and fancy desserts with French names. But I couldn't fully enjoy it. My mind kept drifting back to Baltimore, back to Marcus, back to what was happening at home. Was he at my apartment now? Was he packing up my things? Was he going through my closet, my photos, my life, deciding what to keep and what to throw away? Or had he already received Angela's letter? Had he opened it and read the words cease and desist and elder abuse and prosecution? Was he panicking? Was he calling destiny in a rage? I hoped he was. I hoped he was losing sleep tonight the way I'd lost sleep when I heard him planning to discard me. After dinner, I went back to my cabin. I'd told the staff I didn't need room service or turn-down service. I wanted privacy. I sat on my bed and tried to read one of the books I'd brought, but the words swam on the page. My phone had no service, as expected. I was truly alone out here, but I wasn't helpless. I wasn't lost. I knew exactly what I was doing. The next few days passed in a strange blur. I attended some of the ship's activities, a painting class, a trivia game, a gospel music performance that made me think of church back home. I spent time with Gladys, who turned out to be wonderful company. She told me stories about her ex-husband, about her 3 daughters, about the restaurant she owned in Chicago. "What about you?" she asked one afternoon as we sat by the pool. "Tell me about your family." I'd been avoiding this question, but something about being out here on the ocean, far from everything, made me want to tell the truth. So I did. I told her everything. About Marcus, about the one-way ticket, about what I'd overheard, about Angela Wright and the legal letters. I told her about my apartment and my savings and the senior home Marcus had picked out without asking me. When I finished, Gladys was quiet for a long time. Then she reached over and squeezed my hand. "That boy needs to learn a lesson," she said, "and it sounds like you're about to teach him one." "I'm trying," I said. "I just don't know if it'll be enough. I don't know if he'll understand." "Oh, he'll understand," Gladys said firmly. "Trust me. When you hit a person where it hurts, their pride, their reputation, their wallet, they understand real quick." On the 5th day of the cruise, we docked at a port in Jamaica. Most passengers got off to go shopping or sightseeing. I stayed on the ship. I didn't have money to waste on souvenirs, and besides, I wasn't here for fun. I was here because my son had tried to get rid of me, but Gladys convinced me to at least walk around the port area. "Come on, Lorraine, you're in Jamaica. You can't just sit in your cabin." So we walked. The port was beautiful, bright colors everywhere, music playing, people selling handmade jewelry and wood carvings. We bought some jerk chicken from a street vendor and sat on a bench eating and watching the ocean. "When you get back home," Gladys said, "what's the first thing you're going to do?" "Go to my apartment," I said. "Make sure it's still mine. Make sure everything Angela did worked. And then I'm going to call Marcus, and I'm going to tell him exactly what I think of him." "That's it? Just a phone call?" I looked at her. "What do you think I should do?" Gladys smiled. "Honey, if my child had tried to do to me what your son tried to do to you, there'd be hell to pay, not just words, action, consequences. You need to show him that what he did was wrong in a way he'll never forget." "I don't want to hurt him," I said quietly. "He's still my son." Sometimes the people we love need to be hurt a little bit so they can grow. My daughters were mad at me when I divorced their father. They thought I was breaking up the family, being selfish. But you know what? A year later, they thanked me. They said I'd taught them that they didn't have to accept disrespect, even from people they loved. You'd be teaching Marcus the same lesson. I thought about that. Maybe Gladys was right. Maybe being kind to Marcus now would be cruel in the long run. Maybe he needed to face real consequences. On the 7th day of the cruise, something happened that changed everything. I was in my cabin, getting ready for dinner, when there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find a ship's officer standing there with a serious expression. "Mrs. Washington?" "Yes." "I need you to come with me to the communications office, please. There's been an urgent message." My heart stopped. "What kind of message? Is someone hurt?" "I don't have details, ma'am. Just that it's urgent and requires your immediate attention." I followed him through the ship's corridors, my mind racing. Had something happened to Marcus? To Brenda? Had my apartment building burned down? The communications office was small and cramped, filled with equipment I didn't understand. A young man in a uniform gestured to a phone. "You have a call holding, Mrs. Washington, from a Ms. Angela Wright." Angela? How had she reached me out here? I picked up the phone. "Hello? Lorraine, it's Angela. I'm sorry to interrupt your cruise, but I have news. Important news." "What happened?" "Your son tried to access your bank account yesterday, the one at First National, the one you closed before you left." My stomach turned to ice. "What?" "The bank called me. I'd left my contact information as your attorney of record. Your son went to the branch with his ID and attempted to withdraw $20,000 from the account. When they told him the account was closed and the funds had been transferred, he became aggressive. The police were called." I sat down heavily in the nearest chair. Marcus had actually tried to steal my money. He'd really tried to do it. What happened to him? Nothing legally. He didn't break any laws because he was technically an authorized user on the old account. But the bank has filed an incident report, and they flagged him in their system. He can't try this again. "Angela," my voice was shaking now. "What else has he done?" There was a pause. "Lorraine, your apartment. Your landlord called me yesterday. Your son showed up with a moving truck and 3 men. He tried to get into your apartment to clear it out. Mr. Kowalski stopped him, showed him the legal letter I'd sent, and told him to leave. Your son, he lost his temper. He started yelling about how you were his mother, how he had the right to make decisions for you, how Mr. Kowalski had no right to interfere. Mr. Kowalski called the police." I couldn't breathe. My own son, the boy I'd raised to be respectful and kind, yelling at an old man, trying to steal from me, trying to force his way into my home. Did they arrest him? No, but it's all documented now. The police report, the bank incident, the cease and desist letter I sent. We have a paper trail, Lorraine. If you want to pursue legal action against your son, we have evidence. Legal action against Marcus. The words felt impossible. "I don't know," I whispered. "I don't know what to do." "You don't have to decide right now. Enjoy the rest of your cruise. When you come back, we'll meet and discuss your options. But I wanted you to know what's been happening, and I wanted you to know that your apartment is safe. Your money is safe. You're protected." "Thank you, Angela." "One more thing, Lorraine. Your son has been calling my office multiple times a day. He wants to talk to you. He says it's urgent. Should I give him this number to reach you on the ship?" Every instinct told me to say yes. He was my son. He wanted to talk to me. Maybe he was sorry. Maybe he'd realized what he'd done was wrong. But then I remembered standing in that hallway, hearing him laugh about tricking me, hearing him talk about me like I was a problem to be solved. "No," I said. "Don't give him this number. Let him wait." When I hung up the phone and walked back to my cabin, I felt different. The anger was still there, but now there was something else too. Sadness. Deep, aching sadness for the son I thought I'd raised, and the man he'd actually become. That night at dinner, I told Gladys what had happened. She listened without interrupting, her face growing harder with every detail. When I finished, she said, "You know what you have to do, don't you?" "What?" "You have to show him there are consequences, real consequences, not just words, not just hurt feelings. He needs to understand that what he did was wrong, and that wrong actions have real results." "But he's my son, and you're his mother, the mother he tried to rob, the mother he tried to trap in a nursing home, the mother he lied to and manipulated. Being family doesn't give him the right to abuse you, Lorraine, and letting him get away with it doesn't make you a good mother. It makes you an enabler." Her words hit me like cold water. Was that what I was doing? Enabling him? Making excuses for him because he was my son? I thought about all the times I'd made excuses for Marcus over the years. When he forgot my birthday 3 years in a row, he was busy at work. When he stopped coming to Sunday dinners, he and Destiny had a busy social life. When his calls became shorter and less frequent, he was stressed. I'd been making excuses for him for years, I realized, telling myself that he was a good son who was just busy, just distracted, just going through something. When the truth was simpler and harder, he'd stopped valuing me. He'd started seeing me as a burden instead of a blessing. And I'd let him. "You're right," I said to Gladys. "You're right about all of it. So what are you going to do?" I thought about that question for the rest of the night. What was I going to do? Go home, move back into my apartment, and pretend this never happened? Accept Marcus's apology, if he ever offered one? Go back to being the understanding mother who made excuses and asked for nothing? No, I wasn't going to do that. By the time the sun came up the next morning, I knew exactly what I was going to do. And it was going to hurt. It was going to hurt me, and it was going to hurt Marcus. But sometimes love means letting people face the consequences of their actions. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. Sometimes you have to break something before it can heal right. I'd promised myself Marcus would regret what he'd done 3 times over. It was time to keep that promise. The last week of the cruise passed faster than the first. Maybe it was because I'd made a decision. Maybe it was because I wasn't afraid anymore. I spent my days planning, thinking, preparing for what would come next. Gladys and I became close, real friends, the kind you can call at 3 in the morning if you need to talk. She gave me her number and made me promise to update her on everything. "You're going to be fine," she told me on our last night on the ship, as we sat on the deck watching the stars. "Better than fine. You're going to be free." "Free," I repeated. The word felt strange in my mouth. I'd spent so much of my life taking care of other people, my husband before he died, Marcus, my own mother in her final years. I wasn't sure I remembered what freedom felt like. Free to make your own choices, Gladys said. Free to live your life without someone trying to control you. Free to be Lorraine Washington, not just somebody's mother or somebody's burden. That's the best kind of freedom there is. When the ship pulled into Miami port 2 weeks after we'd left, I stood on the deck with my suitcase, watching the city grow larger. My phone buzzed to life as we entered cell range. Weeks of missed messages and calls flooding in all at once. 17 missed calls from Marcus, 32 text messages from Marcus, 5 voicemails from Marcus, 3 calls from Destiny, multiple messages from Brenda checking in. 2 calls from Angela Wright. I ignored Marcus's messages and called Angela first. "Lorraine, welcome back. How was the cruise?" "Enlightening," I said. "Are we still meeting tomorrow?" 10 a.m. at my office. But Lorraine, before you come in, you should know. Your son has been trying to reach you constantly. He's left messages at my office saying he needs to speak with you urgently, that there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Has he apologized? There was a pause. No, he's mostly angry. Angry at me for interfering, angry at your landlord, angry at the bank. He keeps insisting he was trying to help you, that we don't understand the situation. I see. There's something else. He's hired a lawyer. He's claiming you're mentally incompetent and that he has the right to make decisions for you as your next of kin. My hand tightened on the phone. He's doing what? Don't worry, it's not going to work. You're clearly of sound mind, but it shows he's not backing down. He's doubling down on his actions instead of accepting responsibility. Then neither am I said. See you tomorrow at 10. I took a taxi from the Miami port to the airport and caught my pre-booked flight back to Baltimore. The flight was shorter than the one down, only 2.5 hours. But every minute felt like an eternity. I kept thinking about what was waiting for me, what Marcus would say, what I would say to him. When I landed in Baltimore, it was early evening. The sun was setting, painting the sky the same orange and pink I'd seen from the cruise ship. I took another taxi to my apartment building. As we pulled up, I saw that everything looked normal. The building was still standing. My window on the 3rd floor was still there, curtains drawn the way I'd left them. Mr. Kowalski must have seen the taxi pull up because he came out of his 1st floor apartment before I even reached the door. "Mrs. Washington." He was a short, stocky Polish man in his 70s with kind eyes behind thick glasses. "Thank God you're back. I was so worried. Your lawyer, she explained everything, but I still felt terrible. I had no idea your son was. I thought he was helping you, you understand?" "I know, Miss Kowalski. It's not your fault. Thank you for protecting my home." He helped me carry my suitcase upstairs. When I unlocked my apartment door and stepped inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it. My couch, my photos, my Bible on the coffee table, my home, still mine. I sat down on that old second-hand couch and cried. Not sad tears, relieved tears, grateful tears. I'd made it back. I'd protected what was mine. After I'd unpacked and showered, I sat down with a cup of tea and finally looked at Marcus's messages. The first few were casual. "Hope you're having fun, Ma. Thinking about you." Then they changed tone. "Ma, call me when you can. Something's come up with your apartment." Then anger. Ma, I don't know what you did, but you need to call me right now. Then desperation. Ma, please, we need to talk. There's been a huge misunderstanding. That lawyer is lying to you. I'm trying to help you. The last message was from this morning. I know you're coming back today. I'll be at your apartment at 7 p.m. We need to talk face to face. I looked at my watch. It was 6:30. Part of me wanted to leave, to not be here when he arrived. But the stronger part of me, the part that had been growing stronger every day on that cruise, knew I needed to face him. I needed to look him in the eye and say what needed to be said. At exactly 7 p.m., there was a knock on my door. I took a deep breath, stood up, and opened it. Marcus stood there, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were red, his usually neat hair was messy, and he was wearing wrinkled clothes. Destiny stood beside him, her face tight with worry. Ma, Marcus said, and his voice cracked. Ma, thank God. Can we come in? I stepped aside and let them in. They sat on my couch, the couch I'd bought with my own money, in the apartment that was still mine, and looked at me like they were waiting for me to make this easy for them. I didn't sit down. I stood in front of them with my arms crossed. You sent me on a one-way cruise, I said. My voice was calm, steady. You terminated my apartment lease without asking me. You tried to put me in a nursing home without my consent. You attempted to steal $20,000 from my bank account. You showed up here with a moving truck to clear out my home. And when people tried to stop you, you called it a misunderstanding. Marcus opened his mouth, but I held up my hand. I'm not finished. I stood outside your office door 2 weeks ago and heard you laugh about tricking me. I heard you talk about me like I was a problem to be solved, a burden to manage. I heard you plan my life without me, like I didn't matter, like I wasn't even a person, just an obstacle. Ma, that's not... We were trying to help. Help? My voice rose. You were trying to help by lying to me, by stealing from me, by giving away my home? Destiny spoke up, her voice quiet. Mama Lorraine, we thought... Marcus said you couldn't take care of yourself anymore, that you needed supervision, that the apartment wasn't safe. Did he tell you I work 2 days a week at the church food pantry? I interrupted. Did he tell you I volunteer at the library reading to children? Did he tell you I take care of Mrs. Chen next door when she's sick? Did he tell you I walk 3 miles every morning and my doctor says I'm healthier than most 50-year-olds? Destiny looked at Marcus. Marcus looked at the floor. You decided I was helpless because it was convenient, I said. Because you wanted this house for renovations and you didn't want to deal with me. Because having an elderly mother was cramping your style. That's not fair, Marcus said, and now there was anger in his voice. I've taken care of you for years. I've given you money. You've given me money? I laughed, a bitter sound. Marcus, I have never asked you for a single dollar. Every penny I have, I earned myself. You know what you've given me? Phone calls that got shorter every year. Excuses about why you couldn't come to Sunday dinner. And finally, a one-way ticket to get rid of me. I wasn't trying to get rid of you. Then what were you trying to do? I demanded. Explain it to me. Make me understand how sending your mother away on a cruise with no return ticket, terminating her lease, and picking out a nursing home without asking her is anything other than getting rid of her. Marcus was quiet. He had no answer. because there was no answer that made what he'd done okay. I raised you better than this, I said, and my voice broke. I worked 2 jobs so you could have everything you needed. I sacrificed my health, my youth, my own dreams so you could go to college and have a good life. And this is how you repay me, by treating me like garbage? Marcus stood up, reaching for me. Don't. I stepped back. Don't touch me. Don't call me Ma. You lost that right when you decided I wasn't worth the effort anymore. Destiny was crying now. Mama Lorraine, please. Marcus made a mistake. He can see that now. We both can. We're so sorry. Are you sorry you did it? Or are you sorry you got caught? Neither of them answered. I want you to leave, I said. Both of you, get out of my apartment. Ma, please, we need to talk about this. We're done talking. My lawyer will be in touch about next steps. Marcus's face changed. The guilt and pleading disappeared, replaced by something harder. Next steps? What does that mean? It means you're going to face consequences for what you did. Real consequences. You're going to sue me? Your own son? I'm going to make sure you never try to do this to me or anyone else again. Marcus's jaw tightened. This is that lawyer's fault. She's putting ideas in your head, turning you against your own family. Angela Wright didn't put any ideas in my head. She just helped me protect myself from you. If you have a problem with that, maybe you should think about why your own mother needs legal protection from you. You're making a mistake, Marcus said, his voice cold now. You're old, Ma. You do need help, whether you want to admit it or not. And when something happens to you, when you fall or get sick, or can't take care of yourself, don't come crying to me. I wouldn't dream of it, I said. Now get out. They left. Marcus slammed the door hard enough to make the walls shake. I stood there in my apartment, my heart pounding, my hands shaking. But I'd done it. I'd faced him. I'd said what needed to be said. And I'd survived. The next morning at 10 a.m., I sat in Angela Wright's office and told her everything about the confrontation. She took notes, nodding occasionally. How do you want to proceed? She asked when I finished. I want to make sure he can't do this again. And I want other people to know what he tried to do. He needs to understand that actions have consequences. Angela leaned back in her chair. I can think of 3 avenues we can pursue. Each one will hurt him in a different way. Each one will send a clear message. Tell me. First, we file for a restraining order. We cite the attempted theft, the harassment, the forced entry attempt at your apartment. We include all the police reports and bank documentation. The restraining order goes on his permanent record. It affects his professional reputation. Clients don't like working with financial advisors who have legal issues with their own families. It also means he can't come near you or contact you without facing arrest. That was consequence number 1, his reputation, his career. Second, we contact the licensing board for financial advisors in Maryland. What your son attempted to do, accessing your account without proper authorization, attempting to control your finances without legal power of attorney, constitutes financial elder abuse. The board takes these complaints very seriously. At minimum, he'll face an investigation. At maximum, he could lose his license. Consequence number 2, his livelihood. Third, we go public. We contact local news stations, elder advocacy groups, community organizations. We tell your story. We make sure people know what Marcus Washington tried to do to his own mother. We turn him into an example of elder abuse so that other families see the warning signs. Consequence number 3, his dignity, his standing in the community. 3 times over, I'd promised myself. Do all 3, I said. Angela smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. The restraining order was filed that afternoon. 2 days later, a process server delivered it to Marcus at his office in front of his colleagues. Brenda's cousin worked in the same building and saw the whole thing, Marcus's face going pale as he read the document, the whispers starting among his coworkers. The complaint to the licensing board took a week to prepare, but Angela made sure it was thorough. Every document, every bank statement, every police report. She even included statements from Mr. Kowalski and the bank manager at First National. But it was the third consequence that really changed everything. Angela knew a reporter at the Baltimore Sun who'd been writing a series on elder abuse in Black communities. The reporter, a young Black woman named Simone, came to my apartment with a notebook and a recorder. I told her my story, all of it, the one-way cruise, the apartment, the nursing home, the attempted theft. Can I use your name? Simone asked. I thought about that. Using my name meant everyone would know. Church members, neighbors, Marcus's friends and clients. Everyone would know what he'd tried to do. Yes, I said. Use my name. Use everything. The article ran on the front page of the Sunday edition. Local mother fights back against son's attempt to force her into nursing home. There was a photo of me sitting in my apartment, looking directly at the camera. The article was detailed, sympathetic, and damning. It included quotes from Angela about the legal case. It included statistics about financial elder abuse. It included Marcus's name, his business, everything. By Monday morning, the story had been picked up by 3 local TV stations. By Tuesday, a national news network had called asking for an interview. By Wednesday, Marcus's financial advisory firm had put out a statement saying he was on indefinite administrative leave while the allegations are being investigated. My phone didn't stop ringing. Reporters wanting interviews. Elder advocacy groups asking me to speak at events. Other elderly people calling to share their own stories of abuse by family members. Support messages from strangers saying I was brave, that I was an inspiration, that I'd given them courage to stand up for themselves. And calls from people who knew Marcus, his clients asking if the allegations were true, his friends saying they couldn't believe it, his colleagues distancing themselves. The Sunday after the article ran, I went to church like I did every week. I'd been worried people would judge me, would think I should have kept family business private, would side with Marcus because he was successful and respected. Instead, when I walked in, Sister Patricia hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "Baby, you did the right thing," she whispered. "We're all proud of you." Pastor Williams mentioned me in his sermon, didn't say my name, but everyone knew. He talked about honoring your parents, about how success means nothing if you forget where you came from, about how the Bible says to care for widows and the elderly, not discard them. After church, at least 20 people came up to me. Some shared their own stories of being mistreated by their children. Some said they'd always thought something was off about Marcus, that he'd seemed too proud, too distant. Some just squeezed my hand and said, "We've got your back." That afternoon, Brenda came over with groceries and gossip. "Girl, you have turned this city upside down. Everybody's talking about it. I saw Marcus's picture on the news last night. He looked like he wanted to disappear." "How do you think he's doing?" I asked, and I was surprised to find I actually wanted to know. "His business is in trouble. Half his clients have dropped him. Destiny's family is furious. They're embarrassed by the publicity. And word is, they're having problems, marriage problems." I should have felt satisfaction. This was what I'd wanted, wasn't it? Consequences, justice, revenge. But instead, I felt something more complicated. Sadness for what could have been. Grief for the relationship we'd never have. And a strange sense of freedom, like a weight I'd been carrying for years had finally been lifted. 3 weeks after the article ran, I got a letter in the mail. It was handwritten, in Marcus's familiar messy scrawl. "Ma," it said, "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I can forgive myself. You were right about everything. I was selfish, I was cruel. I treated you like a burden instead of the blessing you've always been. I think somewhere along the way, I forgot who I was. I forgot where I came from. I got caught up in money and status and what people thought of me, and I forgot the one person who made all of it possible. I'm losing everything right now. My business, my reputation, maybe my marriage. And I deserve it. But the thing I've lost that hurts the most is you, your respect, your trust, your love. I know I can't fix this with words. I know I can't undo what I did. But I want you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. Not because I got caught. Not because I'm facing consequences, but because I hurt you. Because I betrayed you. Because I failed to be the son you deserved. I don't know if you'll ever be able to look at me again without seeing what I tried to do. But I hope someday, maybe years from now, you'll be able to forgive me, not for my sake, for yours, because you deserve peace. I love you, Ma. I always have. I just forgot how to show it. Marcus. I read that letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my Bible next to a photo of Marcus as a little boy, smiling and missing his 2 front teeth. I didn't write back. I wasn't ready. Maybe I never would be, but I didn't throw the letter away either. 2 months after I returned from the cruise, Angela called with news. The licensing board completed their investigation. Marcus has been given a formal reprimand and a 1-year suspension of his license. He also has to complete ethics training before he can practice again. Is he going to fight it? No. His lawyer advised him to accept it. Fighting it would mean more publicity, more attention. He wants this to go away. How do you feel about the outcome? Angela asked. I feel like justice was served, I said. Not revenge, justice. Because that's what this had always been about. Not hurting Marcus for the sake of hurting him, but making sure he, and anyone else who might think about doing what he did, understood that you can't abuse elderly people without consequences. That older doesn't mean powerless. That age doesn't mean you lose your rights or your dignity. Life settled into a new rhythm. I renewed my lease on my apartment, signed a new 3-year agreement with Mr. Kowalski. who lowered my rent $50 a month as an apology for almost believing Marcus. I continued volunteering at the church and the library. I joined a book club with some women from church. I started taking a water aerobics class at the community center. And I stayed in touch with Gladys. We talked every week, long phone calls where we'd catch each other up on our lives. She'd started dating someone, a retired school teacher she'd met at a community garden. At 64 years old, I'm having my first healthy relationship, she told me, laughing. Better late than never. Better late than never, I agreed. 6 months after everything happened, I was invited to speak at a community event about elder rights. There were maybe 200 people there, mostly elderly folks and their families, some social workers, some lawyers. I told my story, the whole story. I didn't hold back, didn't sugarcoat it. I talked about the betrayal, the hurt, the anger, but I also talked about the strength I found, the people who helped me, the importance of standing up for yourself, no matter how old you are. When I finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then someone started clapping, then someone else. Then everyone was on their feet, applauding. Afterward, an elderly black man came up to me with tears in his eyes. My daughter's been trying to get me to sign over my house to her, he said it was for tax purposes, that it would be better for everyone, but I didn't feel right about it. After hearing your story, I know I was right to say no. Thank you. You might have just saved my home. That's when I understood. This wasn't just about me and Marcus. It was bigger than that. It was about every elderly person who'd been made to feel like they were too old, too much trouble, too inconvenient. It was about changing the way society thinks about aging, about respecting people's autonomy no matter how old they are. I'd promised myself Marcus would regret what he did 3 times over. And he had. He'd lost his reputation, his license, and his relationship with me. 3 consequences for 1 betrayal. But I'd gained 3 things too. I'd gained my freedom, the knowledge that I could stand up for myself and survive. I'd gained my voice, the courage to speak out about what happened. And I'd gained my purpose, helping other elderly people understand that they have rights, they have value, they have power. 1 year after the cruise, I was sitting in my apartment on a Sunday afternoon when there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Marcus standing there. He looked different, thinner, older, humbler. "Hi, Ma," he said quietly. "I know I'm not supposed to contact you because of the restraining order. I spoke to your lawyer and asked if we could meet. She said it was up to you. So I'm here to ask, would you be willing to talk to me, just for a few minutes?" I looked at him for a long moment. A year ago, I would have slammed the door in his face. 6 months ago, I would have told him to leave. But standing there, looking at this man who used to be my little boy, I felt something shift. "You have 5 minutes," I said, stepping aside. He came in but didn't sit down. He stood in the middle of my living room, looking around at everything. The photos on the wall, the Bible on the coffee table, the apartment that was still mine. "I've been in therapy," he said, "twice a week for the past 6 months. Working through a lot of stuff, about Dad dying, about the pressure I put on myself to be successful, about how I treated you. I didn't say anything, I just listened. My therapist asked me why I did it, why I really tried to send you away. And at first, I gave her all these logical reasons about safety and care and what was best for you. But the truth is simpler and uglier than that. He took a deep breath. I was ashamed of where I came from, ashamed that my mother lived in a small apartment instead of a big house, ashamed that you worked as a cafeteria manager and a janitor instead of having some fancy career, ashamed that when my rich clients asked about my family, I had to tell them my father was dead and my mother was just ordinary. His voice broke. You weren't ordinary, Ma. You were extraordinary. You gave me everything. You made me everything I am. And I repaid you by being ashamed of you, by trying to hide you away where my friends and clients wouldn't see you. Tears were running down his face now. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I needed you to know that I understand now. I understand what I did and why it was wrong. And I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry. I stood there looking at him, this man I'd raised, this stranger who'd hurt me, this son I still loved despite everything. I forgive you, I said. His head jerked up in surprise. What? I forgive you, not because what you did was okay, not because it didn't hurt, but because holding on to anger was only hurting me. Because you're still my son, even if our relationship will never be what it was. And because forgiveness isn't about letting you off the hook. It's about setting myself free. Marcus was sobbing now, big, ugly sobs that shook his whole body. Thank you, Ma. Thank you. But Marcus, you need to understand something. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean we go back to the way things were. It doesn't mean I trust you again. That trust, if it ever comes back, will have to be earned over years, maybe decades, maybe never. He nodded. I understand. And it doesn't mean I regret standing up for myself. I'd do everything the same way again. Because what you tried to do was wrong, and you needed to face consequences. I know, you were right to do it, all of it. We stood there in silence for a moment. Then I said, Your 5 minutes are up. He nodded and turned to leave, but at the door, he stopped. Ma, can I ask you something? What? Are you happy? Now I mean, after everything, are you happy? I thought about that question. Was I happy? I was living alone in a small apartment. My relationship with my son was broken. I'd been betrayed by the person I loved most, but I was also free to make my own choices, free to speak my truth, free to live my life on my own terms. Yes, I said, I am. Marcus nodded slowly. I'm glad. You deserve to be happy. After he left, I sat down on my couch and thought about everything that had happened. The cruise, the betrayal, the fight, the consequences, the healing. I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, scared, hurt, uncertain. And I thought about the woman I was now, stronger, braver, freer. Getting older doesn't mean getting weaker. It doesn't mean you lose your value or your voice. It doesn't mean you have to accept disrespect, even from people you love. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do, for yourself and for others, is stand up and say no. Set boundaries, demand respect, fight for your dignity. And sometimes love means letting people face the consequences of their actions. Because that's how people learn. That's how people grow. Marcus had tried to send me away on a one-way cruise. He'd tried to erase me, warehouse me, forget me. Instead, he'd set me free to be myself, free to help others. free to live the rest of my life on my own terms, with my head held high and my heart at peace. I was Lorraine Washington. I was 68 years old, and I was just getting started. The next Sunday at church, Pastor Williams asked me to give a testimony. I stood up in front of the whole congregation, maybe 300 people, and I told them about standing up for yourself, about dignity in old age, about how it's never too late to fight for what's right. When I finished, the church erupted in amens and applause. Sister Patricia was crying, so was Mrs. Chen, who'd started coming to church with me, even though she was Buddhist. I like the singing, she'd told me, and the people are nice. After church, a young woman approached me. She couldn't have been more than 35, with a baby on her hip and worry in her eyes. Mrs. Washington, my name is Keisha. I just wanted to thank you. My grandmother's been living with us, and my husband's been pressuring me to put her in a home. But she doesn't want to go. She's happy with us. After hearing your story, I know what I need to do. I need to stand up for her. Tell my husband that she's staying, and if he doesn't like it, that's his problem. I hugged her. You're a good granddaughter. Your grandmother is lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her, Keisha said, just like your son should have known how lucky he was to have you. That night, I called Gladys and told her about everything. Marcus's visit, the testimony at church, Keisha, and her grandmother. You know what you are? Gladys said. You're a warrior for elderly people everywhere. A warrior for dignity and respect and justice. I'm just an old woman who got tired of being pushed around, I said. No, Gladys said firmly. You're so much more than that. You're proof that it's never too late to fight back. Never too late to stand up for yourself. Never too late to change your life. 2 years after the cruise, I got an invitation in the mail. Marcus and Destiny were renewing their vows. After everything that happened, they decided to go to couples therapy and rebuild their marriage. The invitation included a handwritten note from Marcus. Ma, I know I have no right to ask this, but it would mean everything to me if you'd come. You don't have to answer right away. Just think about it. Love, Mama. Marcus mo. I thought about it for a long time. Talked to Angela about it. Talked to Brenda and Gladys. Prayed about it. In the end, I decided to go. Not because everything was fixed. Not because I'd forgotten what he did. But because holding on to anger forever wasn't the same as standing up for yourself. There was a difference between setting boundaries and closing doors forever. The ceremony was small and beautiful. Marcus cried when he saw me walk in. Destiny hugged me and whispered, "Thank you for giving us another chance." During the ceremony, Marcus said something in his vows that made everyone cry. I promise to honor not just you, but also the people who made us who we are. I promise to never forget where I came from. I promise to value wisdom over wealth, character over status, and family over everything. He looked at me when he said it, and I nodded. We still weren't close. He called every few weeks, always asking how I was, never pressuring me for more than I was willing to give. Sometimes we met for coffee at a neutral location. Sometimes months went by without contact. But the important thing was this: I'd stood up for myself. I'd demanded respect. I'd refused to be erased. And Marcus had learned that actions have consequences, that elders deserve dignity, that love without respect isn't love at all. And I learned that I was stronger than I'd ever known. That age was just a number. That it's never too late to fight for yourself, to speak your truth, to change your story. I was Lorraine Washington. I was 70 years old now. I had gray hair and wrinkles and knees that hurt when it rained. But I also had my freedom, my voice, my dignity, my home. And nobody, not even my own son, could ever take those things away from me again. 3 times over, I'd promised he would regret it. And 3 times over, I'd kept my promise. But the real gift wasn't his regret. It was my liberation. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.